Hello folks, it's Joey here. Decided to do another video and talk to you a bit more about another character, which, as I said in the last video, is a bit more original, so we'll just get on to it. And here he is, Max the Bean, one of the most original characters I ever created. Has a very interesting backstory to his creation, and what his purpose is and stuff like that. So I'll first talk about a bit about his backstory. The jelly beans happened one day when I was in a charity shop and I found this book called A Book Full of Beans by this artist called Richard Fowler, and it was basically kind of a Where's Wally scenario where beans went around the world on a bus. And being kind of naive at the time and young, I didn't know what to do with my talent, so I decided to start copying Richard Fowler's style of drawing and decided to put my own scenarios in. So I did ones with Christmas. Here's one I did, which is quite a well-known piece called The Race. And basically, I suddenly started to think maybe I could do like a Where's Wally scenario where people had to find a certain character or a certain item, and that's what I really did in these pictures. Is I said, could you please find a red bean called Max the Bean? So that was kind of just the general basic and the start of Max the Bean. Although at the start, of course, he wasn't the main character like Joey. He basically was just a random person shoved into crowds and shoved into scenes for no apparent reason. Because, as I said at that time, I was still trying to find my development, and I still am today, really. But he went into a storybook phase where I kind of did almost very messed up looking comics, where I would do it about him going on TV shows or trying to get like the latest gadget or something. Basically, from this picture, as you can tell, it's supposed to be a story, but it's all messed up, and there wasn't a lot of structure at the time in my, story narrative, and there still isn't today, really. But, this just kind of just shows some of the backstory behind him. As you can see, that the Beans went through a lot of design, including Max. He went through a lot of design changes as time went on. So, but also, instead of trying to carbon copy Richard Fowler's work all the time, I decided to be a bit more original and decided to, make my own scenarios, put my characters into places that he didn't do, even make up worlds that they could live in, because at the time they were just, as I said, they were just random jelly beans you could find on the counter that somehow came to life, but I felt it was a bit, cheap, so I wanted to kind of invent a world for them. So, still at that age, I was still just, drawing these characters out, because at the time I still wasn't sure if I was going to draw people as my cartoons, or invent a random character made out of something to kind of be my signature, as it were. And the Beans have kind of become that now, especially Max the Bean. As he's kind of the idol, he's kind of almost like the king of this race I've invented. And you can't really see him, but he is in this picture somewhere. But I've hidden him carefully, so you would have to find him. The world I created from all my drawings was basically a world based off British culture and British living, in the fact of work life, social life, family life, all the kind of stuff that, Britons go through each day. And it focused on this character called Max the Bean, who was a hard-working family man. And in this picture, I've portrayed him working in his office, with his colleague. Again, there wasn't a real big story behind it. It was just kind of a series I went through kind of when I was growing up. But, and it was all influenced from looking at other British cartoonists who had actually taught me during my younger years. But as time went on, of course, I grew up and started to watch more of the 90s cartoons, which was my most favourite era in animation ever. And basically, I started to put a lot more American influence in the fact that I started to set my cartoons in America and even invented cities for them that were very much based off American culture and American society. And even Max the Bean became more American himself in his design and that. So in this kind of very recent picture, you can kind of see the kind of influence I took on. I kind of gave him almost a kind of British look, but he's got a very much more American look to him. And that's kind of the basic backstory and the basic start of Max the Bean. So after Max the Bean started showing my pictures and wasn't just a random jelly bean in crowds, I started to do a lot more of him, in the fact I did a lot of expression sheets, I did a lot of small stories with him involved in them, and, I was still stuck on exactly what I was going to do with him, because I wanted to do something with him, because I felt like he was quite unique just in his pure design and just in the fact of his, look. And so, after a bit more time, this is the cartoon I came out with. The cartoon is set in modern day America, and the main protagonist is Max the Bean, who was growing up with his grandfather on the farm that his father has inherited. And Max the Bean has suddenly decided he wants to move to the city to just discover what it's like to live there and be independent. So he moves to a city called Ramsesville, and he finds a small suburban house that he can afford just about. And the cartoon basically would follow the adventures and the trials and almost the tests that Max goes through living in this new life that he's made himself. But also, just over time, Max suddenly becomes a gadget geek in the fact that he will take anything that is of technology advance, as Ramsesville is possibly one of the most best places for technology advances in the world at the moment. But the thing is that Max lives next door to an ex-wrestler called Phil, who is a very big show-off and also is quite a bully to him, being bigger than him. And as you can see, he can be quite, aggressive too, and quite sly. Max makes friends with another drunken jelly bean called Bum, whose real name is Mike, but he is kind of a loser. He's kind of the one who, you'd expect has never done anything with his life, and he's too dumb to think for himself, so Max has to think for him. And they basically become friends over time. And the basic idea of the cartoon is it just basically follows the adventures these two go through and how they deal with the weird of the city. Because the thing about Ramsesville is it basically isn't an everyday city as you'd imagine. It has a lot of weird secrets and dark secrets that it hides under, the soil, even underneath people's skin. So, and there's a lot of villains that are hidden in this city. It's almost kind of like the villain society too. So there's a lot in this cartoon, and there was a lot of thought, but it's a very simple story. So that basically is the first idea I had for Max, and it's kind of his own cartoon, but of course later on he was moved into my Joey idea, and I'm just going to talk about that now. In the Joey adaptation, basically Max is a long-time friend of Joey's, and they both are bachelors in the fact that their parents abandoned them because they've gone on a vacation for years to leave the kids to grow up by themselves, and Max never knew who his parents were, so you don't really know what his age is, or who he is really technically, except he's a bean who loves gadgets, loves anything technology advanced. He has a lot of junk. He even has a secret junkyard that he keeps locked away from society, because apparently he's a bit like Dexter's Lab. He has a secret junkyard that he doesn't want anybody else to know about, which could either revolutionize the world. He goes to school with Joey, even though it's not official what grade he's in. He has his own... He invents his own inventions, like here he's invented a pie gun, which you can use easily to feed Joey when he's hungry and stuff like that. And they're basically similar to this. It follows mainly the same, the adventures and the wacky craziness that happens to Max in his everyday life. Again, he isn't the main protagonist in Joey, of course, but he is like one of the main characters. And in this one, he's very much a slapstick, physical character. Not a lot of drama. He's the one who's very sarcastic and can be quite mean sometimes. He can be quite jealous. He can be very jealous of other people. So in this one, he very much is kind of similar to Joey in a lot of ways, but that's kind of the Joey adaptation of Max the Bean. Thank you very much for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I've given you the backstory and a bit of history behind Max the Bean, as well as given some variation into him. And next time we'll be moving on to another character who is both a furry and a fan-made character, but she deserves to have a spotlight, and her name is Sammy Wolf. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Ciao!